Hi guys, it's Fightsci here with yet another video, and today we're breaking down the highly anticipated IBF lightweight title matchup between Vasiliy High-Tech Lomachenko and George Ferocious Kambosos. Let's break it down. First for their early life. Nah, I'm fucking around. How did we get here? First of all. So basically how we got here is... this bout was originally scheduled for sometime in like mid-2022 for Kambosos' WBC franchise belt, his IBF, the WBO, and the WBA. Shortly following Loma's defeat to Teofimo Lopez maybe a year and a half prior. The thing is though, I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, the Ukraine got into a major dispute and war with Russia, and Loma's Ukrainian, and basically he had to pull out from the bout and fight for his country. He was eventually, him and Usyk were the two main like elite Ukrainian boxers in today's day and age. There's Giostik and what's his name, and Sergey Derevyanchenko, but basically these two guys right here are really the cream of the crop. So they were granted, I don't know what the word is, but they're given the blessing to go back to combat sports, which I'm glad they were. But that's kind of why the fight got canceled originally, and obviously Kambosos fought Haney for undisputed. He lost both. He got dominated both times. I mean, let's be honest. He got completely fucking slaughtered both times. But yeah, that's pretty much how we got here. Loma doesn't really leave any stone unturned, so he's like, you know what, hey, you want to fight, bro? You're supposed to fight a couple of years back. And he's like, yeah, sure. Now, 2 years later, they're able to fight. A couple of losses under both their belts, but, you know, still. I think this fight, I'll get into this later in the video, but this fight will be more determined on who's more weathered from their losses and who can capitalize on each other's weaknesses from a technical standpoint, because there is a couple of intangibles going into this fight. And obviously this is a chance for both guys to be world champion again. Probably towards the end of the video I'm going to get more into what I would like to see both guys do from a win. And obviously this fight is definitely a crossroads for both guys, because obviously both guys have multiple losses on their record. Loma has more losses on his record and the shittier record, but that's not really telling the whole story. As I said in my last video, the man has 16 world title fights, whereas Kambosos has 3 world title fights and he has a losing record in world title fights. So the fight's probably more interesting than you think from a first glance, but let's get into the technical breakdown, and then at the end of the video I'm going to say what I would like for both guys to do if they win, more specifically Loma if he wins. Now, I do want to say, before I get into the actual technical breakdown, I do want to explain why I chose both of the fights I chose. Maxie Hughes is actually the first southpaw the first southpaw Kambosos has ever officially faced. I know he had the sparring sessions with Manny Pacquiao, but A, that's sparring, and B, there's not a whole lot of similarities between Loma and Manny Pacquiao besides them being southpaw. So I chose the Maxie Hughes fight for Kambosos, and I also chose the Haney and Lomachenko fight for Loma, because even though obviously Haney and Kambosos are not the same fighter, and obviously they're stylistically very different in the open stance, which is southpaw versus orthodox, they share a lot of the same common flaws, just to kind of explain my reasoning a little bit for choosing the fights I chose. Anyway, let's get into the breakdown. Enough talk. Now, one of the first major flaws I see with Kambosos in the open stance is he moves right, which is very, very bad. If you're an orthodox fighter, you're supposed to move left as to offset the offense of the southpaw. He's not engaging in the jab joust. I mean, Kambosos' jab is really nothing to write home about to begin with, so the fact that he's not even really getting anything going in the open stance is bad. He's got a low lead hand, which is a really bad thing to do in the open stance, and I'll explain why. Since your jab hands are kind of like running into each other, if you have a low lead hand, you're not engaging in the jab joust. And the difference between if you have a low lead hand in the closed stance is you can kind of it's easier to defend the lead hand because you can just hold the phone, whereas in the open stance, sorry, I'm trying to get this right because it's a tad bit confusing. As in the open stance, if you have a low lead hand, you're more likely to get clipped with lead hands from the other fighter because it's going to be harder to defend. You can't just bring it up, your lead hand up as quickly because your lead hands are like literally right in front of each other. So I hope that kind of explains it a little bit. I know I probably could have explained it better, but for people that don't understand, like if you have a low lead hand, you can get clipped with the jab a lot easier because their lead hand is closer to your face, whereas in the closed stance it's like a little more asymmetrical, so to say. Kambosos moving laterally to gain center ring. Kambosos has a weak guard, chin wide open for a swivel jab in the open stance. What's his name was landing that at will. Maxie Hughes. Kambosos still not engaging in jab joust, sticking out a lazy probe jab, which is a really fucking bad idea in the open stance. Kambosos lunges, and if he does this against Loma, he's gonna get fucking killed, man. Kambosos lunges in with backhand in open stance and does stance shift unintentionally and breaks base. It's like, dude, if you keep doing that, the man did it so many times and got clipped so many times, like so consistently against Maxie Hughes. I mean, fuck, bro. I mean, I'm gonna be pointing out so many flaws, bro. It's crazy. Anyway, catches Kambosos with backhand in the open stance, inside foot positioning on Hughes, misses jab. He didn't properly line up his jab either. That's like basically open stance 101. Left hook to the body on Kambosos. Kambosos attempts to frame, then gets clipped with a hook up top. Kambosos attempts to parry away Hughes' lead hand, lunges in again, and stance shifts and breaks base. Hughes pivots off and clips him with right hook. Hughes jabs and steps around, a tactic Loma employs sometimes. This is what I'm talking about, the similarities between Hughes and Loma versus that of Loma and Manny Pacquiao. It's like he's shown against a somewhat similar style to Loma. I know Maxie Hughes and Loma are not quite the same. Maxie Hughes is more of an outboxer, and Loma's more of a boxer puncher. Hughes has more of that traditional European style, whereas Loma has that more Soviet style, etc., etc. And obviously Loma's footwork is much better, but generally, for all intents and purposes, Hughes has the closest style. Kambosos has fought in relation to Loma, and he looked pretty bad against him, I have to say. 1-2 forward shuffle again from Kambosos. Kambosos just got clipped with a left cross to the body from Hughes, didn't disengage or defend or anything. Kambosos frequently squares up base on the penetration step against the southpaw, which is a big mistake. Because you're off balance and you're not really gonna get any at least straight shots off, or really any shots off, because of the lack of symmetry in the open stance. Kambosos frequently comes back foot first in the range against Hughes, which slows up his movements and breaks his base. George double feints in the range and fails his penetration step. Kambosos looks perplexed at this point with Hughes. Sidesteps, then crosses, then cross steps, trying to close the gap that Hughes has established. Even at his best, Kambosos is only able to get neutral foot positioning and lands in some volume on Hughes. Has some success, but overall, not a whole lot of success at all. Sideways shuffle into laterally moving, trying to cut off Maxie, still failing to get outside foot position from Kambosos. Hughes lands a left hook to the body on Kambosos and pivots off. Kambosos struggles with a southpaw that has dynamic footwork, which is exactly what Loma is, times 10. Disengagement into an L step from Hughes. Kambosos is befuddled at this point. Kambosos jabs even when Maxi circles him. Seems Kambosos gathers his feet. Kambosos jabs even when Maxi circles him. Seems Kambosos gathers his feet with Maxi, which is a big mistake. Maxi Hughes misses jab, frames head, then hits with backhand, something Loma would almost certainly do. Seems like Kambosos has a good swivel jab, something he can possibly use on Loma when he tries to get that weak side angle. Kambosos C-steps and lands right hook on the inside on Maxi Hughes. And this is one of the major points I wanted to bring up. Every time Maxi Hughes pivots, Kambosos needs to gather his feet. The pivot is the main tool Loma uses with his feet. He must adapt, otherwise he will be cannon fodder to Loma. That jab left cross to the body is also Loma's bread and butter. Kambosos attempts to cut Maxi off diagonally and eats an up jab in the process. Kambosos also attempting a hand frame on Maxi, just leaving his lead hand out there ripe for a right hook counter from a southpaw. I'll obviously show in Loma's part of the video how he capitalizes on such a thing. Kambosos base squared up and gets knocked back by Hughes. I knew he was going to pay for it. And now we're on Loma's part. Haney probing Loma's high guard, something Kambosos might be able to take advantage of, as well as when Loma has his base broken. I say might, because even though Kambosos has shown somewhat of an ability to probe, nowhere near the level of Haney, that's why I say might. Loma feints the outside angle change to see how Haney will react to it. Haney tries to circle around Loma, and Loma does a double quarter pivot better than Kambosos that simply follows his opponent and waits for his feet to be set every time he wants to punch, or turning while his opponent circles him, which is just shitty footwork. Just how Haney didn't keep his lead hand up, Loma capitalizes, gets his lead foot on the outside, and lands combination on the penetration step, something Kambosos frequently does. Loma C-steps into a double pre-slip, definitely trying to find opening with the low lead hand of Haney. 1-2 from Loma, timing Haney when his lead hand is down would do the exact same thing at Kambosos. We'll touch more on this later, obviously. Loma slips to the lead leg, brings backhand closer and clips Haney with backhand, something him and Kambosos struggle with in the open stance. Haney attempts to frame on Loma. Loma successfully gets off angle change and lands double backhand on Haney. Loma gets under Haney's arm in the clinch and lands right hook, left hook to the body on Haney. Loma clips Haney with right hook when his hand is down. Loma does an L step into a bad position. Can't afford that against Kambosos, obviously. Even though Kambosos, as you're starting to see, is not on Loma's level skill-wise, even one big mistake like that can cost him. Loma does his classic move, lead foot to the outside, matador feint on Haney into a short combo, something he would be able to do even easier on Kambosos. Loma blocks lead hook from Haney with shield block. Loma cuts Haney off diagonally left, something he would almost assuredly do to Kambosos. Loma pre-slips to the lead foot and probes jab, something I don't normally see him do. Loma leaves his hand down to entice shots from Haney into a sambo takedown. Loma pre-slips to the outside and lands crisp left cross on Haney. Haney leaves his lead hand out way too long. Loma slips the frame and lands double backhand lead hook to the body, another mistake Kambosos makes. That's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what he did against Maxi Hughes, and he got clipped for it. Same way Haney got clipped. Kambosos will get clipped, but much, much worse. Loma level changes to open round. Loma does a control into an angle change, another way he would switch things up on Kambosos. Lands backhand, then pivots out from corner. Loma probes with the jab to occupy Haney's vision and double backhand. Loma lands 5-6 combination on Haney again, catches him in range with both of his hands down, something Kambosos does as well. Loma hits Haney with swivel jab, something he'll probably land at will on Kambosos. Loma level changes. Haney takes the bait and lands double jab, left cross, Soviet special of straight shot combos. Loma cutting off Haney laterally and diagonally. One of the main ways I can see Kambosos beating Loma is using hand frame to push Loma off balance, something Kambosos has in his toolbox. That seems like the only decent control Kambosos knows how to use is that kind of lead hand frame, pushing someone off balance. It seems like every other frame, like arm frames and things of that nature, he doesn't have to the same degree as Haney, as I pointed out in my Haney video. Loma lands combo on penetration step. Loma clips Haney with backhand out of orthodox. Loma lands flurry on Haney on penetration step, and pretty much all this other shit I don't really need to point out. The only other thing I wanted to point out was Haney attempts penetration step on Loma. Loma smartly disengages, feints jab to the body. Loma lands cross to the body and swivel jab. Yet another aspect where Loma is far superior than Kambosos is knowing like how or when to disengage. Final thoughts / outro. I do believe this is a crossroads fight for both guys. Whoever wins this fight will undoubtedly be able to continue their career and go on to win more belts. However, the loser will more than likely have to pack their shit and go home. Probably fight around as an opponent, something neither guy will want to do. I believe the pressure is more on Loma, given the fact he already has a legacy and the fact he has more losses on his record. It's winner take all in this fight, in my opinion. However, I do believe Loma either beats Kambosos over 12 or stops him around rounds 9 through 12. Expect to see a dominant performance from Loma as long as he's still mentally there after the Haney loss. This is Fightsci signing out.